Okay, hi, I'm Crystal. I'm a postdoc at NDARC, and today I'm going to be talking to Emily and Lucy, who are current PhD candidates at NDARC, about their experiences. I've seen both of your work in presentations. It's super interesting. I guess I'm interested in why you chose NDARC. I know you started as an RA, Lucy, so why did you do a PhD at NDARC?
Becoming a research assistant, it sort of let me in more into the world of research. Because previously my only exposure was through an honours project. Becoming a research assistant and doing it essentially for 12 months, it really showed me the other side of research. And then I think also being at NDARC, being exposed to so many different areas of drug and alcohol, it's not that NDARC specialises in one drug or alcohol. So I think it was just really interesting just to get that exposure, see different researchers, see people who were doing their PhD, get their perspective on doing a PhD, but then also speaking to, the more senior researchers and sort of seeing what their research was. And I think that sort of then was like, oh, okay, maybe a PhD is something I want to explore a little bit more. But then working as an research assistant at NDARC really then ignited that, okay, maybe research is something I really want to pursue and it is really interesting and it can have quite a lot of impact. So I think that's why, I sort of chose NDARC because I was already in it, but I could see how the researchers at NDARC were having an impact on the communities and, the sort of world at large.
And that was a similar experience for me, I think, as well. I liked the culture of NDARC. It was a nice place to work in, and similar to you, saw what other people were doing and coming from a psychology perspective, seeing how that could be applied in a totally different area. Yours is quite different though, Emily, because you're a real doctor. You're a medical doctor.
All different types of doctors, right?
So how did you kind of come across NDARC and want to come here to do a PhD?
Yeah, so it was actually an advertisement. It was a joint sort of, position between sort of NDARC at UNSW as well as ACON. So I was actually coming up towards the end of my specialty training, and then I was very interested in doing research, but didn't really have an idea of sort of where to go with things. And I guess it was actually like very fortunate because this was sort of a topic that was, I was like, I wanted to explore, at some stage, and then it kind of, the timing happened and it was really, really, great. I saw, an ad that, Louisa and the people from ACON put out. And then essentially applied through that, and then got the scholarship position from there. And essentially the topic they kind of put forward was quite a broad topic. They just wanted to explore essentially what I'm looking at, mental health and substance use outcomes in trans and gender diverse people, and that sort of fit really nicely with the clinical work too.
Yeah. So I chose my supervisor while I was a research assistant, Lucy. Because I was interested in psychology and a new researcher came, I liked his research. But I'm wondering how both of you chose your supervisors and how the process worked for you, how often you met. I would meet with my supervisor probably once every 2 weeks or so. Was it similar? I mean, you've got a different experience, Emily, because you're a doctor as well. You've probably got a busy schedule. So how often do you meet?
Actually, fairly frequently, yeah. So we try to meet every week. Which is really good, if you're, stuck with a certain area, not too sure sort of how to proceed, then, weekly meetings are really good because then you can kind of work through things with your supervisors.
Yeah.
Everyone's very busy with their own things, but, we make time. So I think that's the important thing.
I feel like it's a changing process too throughout my PhD. Sometimes you'd have to meet much sooner than even once a week if you had a particular problem you needed to go through, or if you were working on something you could have a bit more time. So that's so true, actually. It can change. But how did you choose your supervisors as well?
Yeah, well, there was actually part of the whole, scholarship application. Yeah, Louisa, who's got a role at ACON as well. So she, was very interested and is very involved, with health outcomes in the LGBT community. Yeah. So, I guess it was natural for her to then sort of take on that role as a primary supervisor. And Rachel as well, as part of that supervisory team. They both have explored and published stuff in the area. So, yeah.
So I was similar to you, Lucy. You started as a research assistant at NDARC, and then I was always interested in psychology. That was my undergrad degree. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do next. And then Don Weatherburn came to NDARC, and his research is very forensic psych kind of related, looking at courts, criminal justice system area, which I was really interested in. So I reached out to Don, and then we kind of formulated, it was very collaborative. We formulated a plan of what we wanted to look at, and I wonder if yours was kind of similar process. Was it the same for you?
Yeah, it was a very similar process. So when I was working as a research assistant at NDARC, I worked quite a lot with Louisa, but then Rebecca, I would hear about her research. I got pulled into some discussions. I was like, okay, this is a very interesting mix of areas. And then, sort of when I proposed a PhD idea, I was like, oh, well, I would like to work with both of you. So can we figure out a topic that sort of covers all of my interests, but also covers what you guys are very knowledgeable in, and draw from their knowledge and draw from their experience.
So it sounds very collaborative, which is what exactly my experience was.
And I think that's what NDARC is good at, in that there's going to be researchers at NDARC who have a very set idea of here's an interesting topic that I think would be great as a PhD topic. But if you approach someone like, hi, I'm really interested in a PhD, but I really want to explore this facet of it. There's always going to be someone who's like, absolutely, let's explore that a little bit more. Let's flesh that out. Let's put you in the best position that we can so that you can apply for scholarships and be ready.
And what do you think, what's been the best part of your PhD so far? If you could think of one highlight that you want to point out, what would you think it would be?
One massive perk is, for me especially, I've been able to travel quite a bit with my PhD. So presenting my research at different conferences has allowed me to travel to North America. It's allowed me to travel to Europe, as well as traveling within Australia. So I think it's a nice way to be able to connect with people internationally through a PhD, knowing that you do have those opportunities of being able to go abroad and present your work and connect with people who are very interested in what you're doing.
I think traveling, one of my favourite parts as well of my PhD. Went to Vienna and got to see other research, but got to sightsee. It was definitely a nice little perk as part of doing a PhD.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I worked during my PhD as a research assistant. You're a doctor, because I'm a real doctor, Emily. And Lucy, you're also working as an RA. So I guess is that how you manage doing a PhD and getting the scholarship, as well as, affording to live in Sydney? It's expensive right now. So just what are your thoughts on that, I guess?
Yeah. Certainly it is. Yeah, it's expensive time right now. Yeah, but definitely sort of being able to have the opportunity to do other work. And again, whether that's, working as a research assistant or, being able to work in your own field as well. I think that does help. And, the scholarships, they do provide some additional support as well. Conference support and travel, and additional research costs as well. That's, it's very, very helpful.
And I think the fact that it's tax-free money, the scholarship that is a big bonus, because whatever that's your money, and then working to supplement that, it's very helpful. I found it really easy to manage working during my PhD. I think you both sound like you've had that experience too. Lucy, do you find it pretty easy to manage working as well? Because you're also a clinician too.
Yeah. So. Well, I guess when the balance was clinician, research officer, research assistant, and then PhD became sometimes difficult. But I think, being able to manage the three and having the exposure to the three is really helpful. And like you said, I think very much in the context of NDARC, they're very much aware that you're doing a PhD. They are aware that a PhD ebbs and flows at times. There's going to be times where there's a little bit more work entailed, but there's other times where things are a little bit more quieter with your PhD. And they're very much aware of okay, well, if you're my research assistant or you're my research officer, then we can tailor your hours based on what you're needing for your PhD, which I think is really helpful and really helps with just the balance of things, while also knowing, okay, I am going to have some steady additional income, because the stipend, isn't always going to cover everything that you need at times.
I think, Emily, it's important you mentioned the extra benefits you get aside from the scholarship, because I got a computer during my PhD, like you said, travel, like you actually do have funds you can access to get things you might need, go to courses you might need. I think both of you have touched on the idea that your PhD is something that it might be slower paced than working in an ED ward, but it's also something that you've got to concentrate on and put time into. And so I think for me, if I was thinking of my best advice for a potential student, it would be to choose a topic you're really interested in, that you really like, because you're going to be with it for at least 3.5 years. So just choose something you really see yourself, working in and enjoying. What would be either of your best advice or best tip for a future student?
Your supervisors are there to support you. They're there to champion you. And I think, sometimes it is quite important to think about who your supervisory team is that instance. And I think also jumping on that is also you have a topic that you set out at the beginning of your PhD. And I think also knowing that your PhD is going to change, it's going to morph, it's going to evolve. And during your PhD, just like any other job, you're going to have different areas of interest throughout it. And knowing that just because you look into a topic at the beginning of your PhD doesn't mean that that is it. Like there are ways that you can explore your PhD topic, but through different facets. So I think for someone who's thinking about doing a PhD and thinking, oh no, I have to make a decision now for the next 3 to 4 years. It's like, yes, you do, but you can change throughout that time. And there's always ways that you can weave in that story throughout your PhD that actually it doesn't have to lock you in the way that you think it's going to lock you in as someone who's just going to start out their PhD. Yeah.
Well, thanks again, Emily and Lucy, for talking to me today. It was you gave a lot of good insights. It was nice to chat to you. Thanks for tuning in. I hope it was helpful. For any information about postgraduate opportunities, please see our website.